was trying to hide away, ashamed of the light of day. Made a choice, thinking I'd be free, but that choice, it imprisoned me in my shame. Till I stepped into the light of God's love, the healing began. I'm free from the shame, I'm healed of the pain. I will be silent no more. I'm free from the lies, love opened my eyes. I will be silent no more. Love broke through to the heart of me. Now the truth has come and set me free from the past. When I stepped into the light of God's love, forgiven at last. I'm free from the shame, I'm healed of the pain. I will be silent no more. I'm free from the lies, love opens my eyes. I will be silent no more. There is power in my story, freedom from this night. There is healing and forgiveness if we step into the light. I'm free from the shame, I'm healed of the pain. I will be silent no more. I'm free from the lies, love opens my eyes. I will be silent no more. I'm free from the shame, I'm healed of the pain. I will be silent no more. I'm free from the lies, love opens my eyes. I will be silent no
Hello, this is Janet Morana. I'm the Executive Director of Priest for Life. I also co-founded the Silent No More Awareness Campaign along with Georgette Forney from Anglicans for Life. Well, did you ever think about abortion in terms of how young are young girls getting abortions? I mean, do you think that's a problem for teenagers or it's only when kids are in college? Well, joining me today is one of our Silent No More regional coordinators. Her name is Maureen Dice, and she coordinates in our campaign with two other wonderful regional coordinators up in the Chicago area. And joining us today to discuss this topic is Maureen Dice. Maureen, welcome to the program.
Glad to be here. Thank you.
So as I just said, we know Planned Parenthood and the abortion clinics, they target the young people. There are so many Planned Parenthoods are now even on college campuses. We have the guidance counselors in high schools are, schooled basically by Planned Parenthood and have all the information at their fingertips. And your story I'd like to focus on that a little bit right now because you were only 14 years old, right, Maureen, when you had your abortion?
Yes.
So tell our viewers right now, what brought that about, and involvement with your parents, the boyfriend. Just give us a snapshot on 14-year-old girl. So you must have been a freshman in high school?
Yes.
Yeah. So you were kind of young.
Yeah.
So tell them how all this came about.
Okay. Well, first of all, when I was suspecting I was pregnant, I know a person that was pregnant, and she had her test done at an abortion clinic because we didn't have the over-the-counter pregnancy test back then. I would have had to gone to a regular doctor. And actually, at my age, I could have not even gone to a regular doctor for a pregnancy test without parental permission. So I went to this abortion clinic, and I found out that it was positive. And my husband, or well, he's my husband now, but at that time, my boyfriend and we hadn't even talked about the possibility of an abortion. That really wasn't like on the table. And we walked out of the abortion clinic into the elevators, and that's where I broke down and started crying. And right away, someone came out of the clinic and told me to come back in. And I was crying that I don't know how I'm going to tell my parents this, And she said, put her hand on mine and said, "You don't have to tell your parents." And I was like, "What?" Yeah. And she goes, "No, you could have an abortion without parental consent." And after hearing, the spiel that she gave, it sounded like that was my only choice. If I was so afraid to tell my parents, and they didn't offer any other choices either. It was, don't worry about this, an abortion is your answer.
And your boyfriend's name was Paul, I think, right?
Yes.
So what was his reaction?
He's always kind of left things up to me. I mean, he never forced or anything like that, but it was just, it was such a bag of goods that they were selling that, there's nothing to it. It's going to be easy. It's going to be done, and life can go on. But it was later in my husband's testimony, I didn't realize that he was also worried about any legal repercussions that could be, because he was already 18 at the time.
That's right. And so for our people that don't understand that, your boyfriend was 18, you were 14. Had your parents found out about all this, he could have been charged with statutory rape, correct?
Correct.
Yeah. So your parents never knew then about you being pregnant? You kept it hidden from them, right? Okay. So you walked in and got the pregnancy test. How long did it take till you went back for the abortion? Was it the next day, a few weeks?
I think it was either the next day or 2 days after, but it was very close right after it.
Yeah. Okay. And then, of course, so how did you feel right after that abortion? I mean, what was your feelings? I think initially some women will say, well, when I first walked out, I felt relief because I thought my problem was solved. What was your case?
That wasn't my case at all. I could go back to the night before the abortion. I just remember thinking, this is not really what I want to do. I don't want to do this. And I remember rubbing my abdomen and telling my baby that I wish I could keep him or her. So I went in there not wanting to do it. And then after it was done and I was like in recovery, I just was bawling my eyes out, just crying and crying. And one of the clinicians came in and said, you're the only one crying in here, and so forth, and you'll have other children one day. And so I felt the loss from the get-go. There was never any really relief. It was sadness, and I would just have crying bouts, all the time, just because I was so sad that I did what I did. But I didn't feel like I had any other choice at that age.
Now, your boyfriend, Paul, then, of course, you two, a lot of couples break up, but you didn't break up with him. You guys continued to date, right?
Yes. And unfortunately, still, we're having, sex. And so it wasn't surprised that I got pregnant again.
And now you're 16, right?
No, 15.
15?
Yeah.
Wow.
By the time I gave birth, I was 16, but now I was 15.
Wow.
Yeah.
So what happened this time? Now, obviously, you said you gave birth, so you didn't have a second abortion.
No, I did
You were
not.
still devastated by the first.
Yes.
So now you had to go tell your parents, no?
Oh, yeah, I did. But first of all, I went back to that same abortion clinic. And when they told me the test was positive, I walked out. I was at the same elevator. I wasn't crying. I was thinking, I don't know how I'm going to do this, God, but I'm going to. And in the Sun-Times, Chicago Sun-Times, they had a little ad which was put in by Joe Scheidler when he worked for Illinois Right to Life.
Uh-huh.
And it said abortion alternatives and things like that. So I called them and I talked to the counselor there, which is now a good friend of mine. And I said, I don't know what to do. I don't want another abortion. I have to tell my parents, and I don't, and how this is going to happen for me. I can't imagine just blurting it out. So we agreed that she would come and help me tell my parents I was pregnant.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yes.
And the reaction?
Oh my gosh. It was pretty bad. I mean, my parents, they really didn't think I dated much, let alone, we could be in this possible situation.
Right.
So, I mean, they were just beside themselves. I mean, it ended up being, all the relatives coming over. She called my godparents to come and get me, and so forth. And it was, it was something else. And then of course, all the relatives are coming up. Well, just have an abortion. Just have an abortion. And I said, no, there's no way am I going to have an abortion. And the woman from Illinois Right to Life, at that time, she wasn't married, but Laura Canny, she was explaining that abortion is not the answer here. So,
Right. Okay, so now Paul, your boyfriend, he's still sticking by you. And at what point did he suggest that you guys get married?
Well, actually, it was kind of planned before I told my parents. Before actually I told my parents I was pregnant, I made sure I knew how it was going to be paid for. I already had my first OB-GYN visit and everything like that, because I was always, even at that age, very independent. And so actually, when I laid everything out before my parents, it's like, oh, I'm going to have the baby here. We're going to get married on my birthday when I turned 16. And so forth, which I think was a kind of a shocker too. But down the line, my mother's, parents said, guys don't have to get married, but we decided that's what we wanted to do.
Wow. Okay, so you got married and gave birth now to this child. And was it a boy? Was it a girl? Tell us.
The little girl.
Yeah. So now you're 16. Of course, you two are still married. How many years now?
45 almost come July.
45. Wow. And how many children do you have total?
I have 4 living, and then my child that I aborted that I named Mary Catherine.
Right. Wow. So, okay, you two get married, but did you ever talk about the abortion together in those early days? Or where did you get to the point where you said, I have to deal with this and find healing?
Okay, well, actually, right in the hospital when I had my daughter, I was just in a room with her and she was in my arms. And all of a sudden, it dawned on me that I took the life of somebody just as precious as the child I was holding. So I actually, at that point, was crying tears. And then after we got married and my daughter was just a couple of months old, I was thinking, oh my gosh, what if I lose this baby? Because, not that God is a vengeful God, but, at 16 years old and really thinking that clearly. But I just wanted to make peace with God. And so I had my husband go to a church other than our own, and he went to confession and he told the priest that, I also wanted to go to confession for the same thing. And then we had an appointment, and that was, such a grace that, by the time that this was she was only a few months old. So, just to have that peace inside again.
And then did you ever go on to do a healing program of any kind?
I had to. I had no idea that, I think it was 10 years down the road that this would come and hit me in the face again. Because when I had my 4th child, I had, I can't think of the name of it, that depression that you have after when you have a baby.
Postpartum
Depression. Thank you. And I mean, Satan likes to take a little bit of the truth and then blow it up.
Yeah.
And a lot of times when mothers have this, they feel like, oh, can they take care of their baby? Could they harm them? And all these other things that flow through their mind,
Right.
which no matter what, I know I was a good mother, regardless of the thoughts that were being put in my head. And it came to the point, where I said, there's no way I would ever hurt my child. And then I could distinctly, it wasn't like audible, but you knew it was being said to you, and it said, but you killed one of them already. And that pointed back to the abortion. And it's like, that part is true. And it's like, well, gee, if I could kill one child, isn't there a chance I could be dangerous to the rest? And that just played on me. And I mean, the depression was so bad, along with the postpartum depression. And I finally met with this priest who was just wonderful. His name is Father John Grigas. He's no longer with us. He's in heaven now. But he was fantastic, and he really brought me to a place of healing.
Well, now we have a question here. They're asking, how do you heal emotionally from the choice you made? They wanted to know, like, knowing like what you're saying right now, knowing I killed that first child. How do you heal from that emotion? They were asking.
It takes time. And I do believe that you really do need some kind of program where you are making that peace. And I mean, one thing, even though I was having those bad thoughts later, after I went to confession, I did not have the guilt. I knew I was forgiven. The other things that came in my mind and so forth, that was more just a mental, emotional thing I was going through from the abortion. And I believe from an attack by Satan, because he knew one day that I am going to fight for life. And I always said, if I rallied around my 4 kids that I gave birth to all their lives, it's about time that I give attention to my Mary Catherine.
Right. And so did you eventually go through like a Rachel's Vineyard or one of those programs, or no?
I only did for the fact because I was going to be a regional coordinator, so that I could see what these plans, or not plans, I'm doing good. Programs are like. And even then I could not believe when certain parts of it, I mean, I just started crying, and it's like, so it doesn't matter if it's decades, you never get over the loss of a child.
Right. Well, what we find, and I'm sure you would agree too, is that, like you said, you go to confession, so God has forgiven you. Yeah. So that little bit of that guilt has taken away. But the other deeper step that's harder to take is forgiving yourself. And I think that's what you're referring to now, is this process of, some of us describe it like peeling an onion away, a layer at a time. And that, every time, like you're in ministry now with Silent No More, so every time you help someone else or tell your story, another layer of that onion peels away, so that you come to a better place each and every time. Would you say that describes it?
Definitely.
So now let's talk about your husband for a minute, okay? I mean, you guys have beaten the odds, 40 some odd years married, 4 children. I mean, as you know, statistically, most couples break up very soon after the abortion. They rarely go on to get married. And sometimes when they do go on and get married, then they divorce. It fractures their relationship. But you guys beat all those odds. What do you think was the secret? Like, how did that happen? That you're not the statistic.
No, I'm not a statistic, but it's funny because I used to do pre-Cana with my husband for many, 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 many years. And I said to the couples, I said, if you have God in your life, it is the best insurance policy you could possibly have, and to pray together and to make God a part of it. And I said, it won't stop you from going through trials and tribulations and things like that, but you'll have the grace to get through them. And it sounds crazy, but I was pretty religious before, I was pregnant. I used to go to church, before school, Catholic school and everything. And it felt so good after we were married that I could also make peace with God in that way. So, it just was a marriage that had God in it from the start.
Right. So now, how old are your children now?
My daughter will be 44, uh, 42, 39, and 34.
Okay. So when in the course of their lives did you tell them about their sibling, that they lost a sibling to abortion?
Okay, well, unfortunately, um, I was kind of forced to have to do that, but we were seeking out other ministry in the Catholic Church, and we found out that that was, if you had an abortion, you weren't allowed to be ordained and so forth. So we told them, and, they took it very, very well.
Uh-huh.
They were more concerned about how our feelings, were at this time, but they know how we lived a pro-life, life. I mean, I used to be a director of religious education at a church, and I used to take the confirmation kids to pro-life things, especially the March for Life. We would
Uh-huh.
go to that as well.
Okay, so and of course, I know one of the steps to being a regional coordinator with Silent No More, and for any women speaking out, they had to have gone through healing and tell their family, because you don't want to be out there talking about your story,
No.
and your family doesn't know, and they see it on Facebook. So in your case, I think you and your husband, aren't you reaching out in your church community to tell like confirmation classes your story? The two of you, right? You speak
Yes,
together,
the two of
don't you?
us. The two of us speak together. We've been doing this for a few years, mainly to confirmation students. But last January, not this past January, but of 2020, we actually went with the Diocese of Joliet, and we talked on every one of the buses that were going to Washington. And I think they had 5 buses that year. But I am willing, my husband and I are willing to talk to any group, anytime, never a charge, anything like that, just to get the word out. And I still feel, even though I'm 60 years old now, I still feel that it's very relatable, because I was their age when this happened. And just because they're seeing these older people, I make sure I have poster size pictures of my husband and I when we were younger, so they can
That-
okay.
You show them. I was once a teenager too, so I get it.
This is what I once
So
looked like,
what's the reaction, would you say, of these teenagers? Do they ask you questions? Like, what's the reaction?
I mean, especially the first one we did, it was so positive. And one young man went up to my husband and said, "Could I please shake your hand?" And they were very thankful. And even the priest who was watching, during our speech, he said, "You really got to those kids." And I still tear up when I come to the point, especially when I'm talking about the night before the abortion, and I tell them, plain and simple, this is what it is. This is why you don't want to do this. And even my last time we talked to a confirmation class, I incorporated part of the video of Silent No More, I'm doing good, Silent No More, Silent Scream.
Oh,
And Silent Scream, but I did not go where it was graphic. I just left that, the audio on for that part.
right.
And it's just like, you have to take them there for them to really know about it, So my testimony, hearing about what's done during an abortion and things like that, it really has to get in their face, or they won't understand. They'll just think it's, a reproductive right, which is crazy.
I know. And then I'm guessing, like in your talk too, you must then incorporate the idea of chastity a little bit, right?
Yeah.
Because obviously you and Paul didn't get that message, because first it was the abortion, then you got pregnant again. So you were still, being promiscuous, so to speak.
Yes.
So I think the lesson for these kids is, listen, as they say, with you play with fire, you're going to get burnt. If you're having sex with your boyfriend, there's a good chance you're going to get pregnant, and then you're going to have to face this. So I mean, I think it's so wonderful that you are speaking to teenage kids, because we know statistically right now, so many of these young people are having sexual relations at younger and younger ages. And that's why when I started off the program and I said, you had your abortion at 14, like, don't be shocked, everybody. I mean, unfortunately, I've heard stories of young girls as young as 12 and 11 have had abortions. I mean, now you're talking 7th and 8th grade, and it's happening. And, too often, I think, to me, in every confirmation class, they should be talking about abortion. I mean, how can they be confirmed in the Catholic faith and not hear about the teachings of the church with life? And I think I think parents and schools are skipping important steps here by not telling the truth to these kids. And I want to thank you and Paul, Maureen, because it's not easy to get up and keep telling your story every time. But look at how many young children that you're affecting, that maybe, they'll say, hey, you know what? It's like you're saying, don't go down this road. I did it. And it didn't stop,
And let me tell you about it.
Exactly. Okay, so here's another question. It says, memory and healing of pain and abortion. God bless you and your marriage and giving you your children. So that's one of our viewers just thanking you.
Thank you.
For you and Paul and your bravery to keep telling and telling and telling. It's one thing, like you said, we go to confession, we know God forgives us, but do we really want to keep playing that tape recorder? But that's what you two are doing. You're rewinding and playing the tape and rewinding and playing the tape. But at this point, not for your own healing, but to save other people. And that's so admirable. And I want to thank you too for stepping out and being a regional coordinator there for the Silent No More Awareness campaign. We need more regional coordinators. So if you're watching and you want to help, you don't have to have had an abortion to be a regional coordinator. What you need to do is to be an ambassador in your community, to know the healing resources and programs in your community. So when someone comes to our website looking for help, we put them in personal contact with someone. Because wouldn't you say, Maureen, that's what these people need? A personal voice to say, we understand you're not alone, right?
Definitely.
So, well, thank you, Maureen, for again giving your testimony here. And I think maybe we'll have to have you back with Paul, and we'll have both of you talking. How's that sound?
It sounds great.
Okay. Well, God bless you, and thank you.
Thank you.
Well, brothers and sisters, if you want to go a little bit deeper into these stories here, I have a book I wrote called Recall Abortion. And in this book, you will hear testimonies of the women from Silent No More. We talk about all the facts, even the hard cases. There's stories in here of women who were raped and went on to have the abortion, talking to other women who were raped and gave birth to the child. I deal with the fetal anomaly, life of the mother. There's a full chapter on the pill and why it's so bad for women's health. It's very, very good book for lots and lots of information. Recall Abortion. And then my second book, Shockwaves, Abortion's Widest Circle of Victims. And this book talks about how abortion affects, obviously every baby is killed during an abortion, but how does that affect the mother, the father, the grandparents, future siblings? So this deals with all the groups of people that are harmed and damaged from abortion. Both these books are available at our online store. You can go to prolifeproducts.org, again, prolifeproducts.org, and get these wonderful resources. And actually, you can let your teenagers read them too. So thank you for joining us again today. This is Janet Marano, the Executive Director of Priests for Life. God bless.